Queer the City from Homotopia, Art Crawl, Episode 3. This art crawl takes us to a very historic part of the city. In fact, probably it's the most historic of the locations that we're going to be visiting on these art crawls. It's the oldest Chinatown in Britain, in Europe. It's Liverpool's Chinatown, and if people don't visit it regularly, I suppose the image that you would get of the area would be of restaurants, Chinese restaurants. And of course there are Chinese restaurants aplenty along this street here. But of course the one thing about Liverpool's Chinatown is that it's relatively unusual. It's famed for having an arts centre on the corner. It's got the public house, the Nook, which has gone down in history as a pretty rare building in its own right. And of course the strange thing about it is that the Chinese Arch, which is one of those things that emblematises for people a Chinatown, was actually a quite late gift from the city of Shanghai, and wasn't originally around when Chinatown was in its port heyday. So this area kind of has got a lot of kind of layers of meaning to it. And to explore one artwork that's appeared magically in the area, I have with me Rebecca Clarke, who is a member of the women-led collective Moon Cup Theatre, which specialises fairly obviously in performance work. Rebecca, do you come down into Chinatown very often?
I've definitely been down Chinatown many a time, sometimes slightly bleary-eyed, sometimes slightly drunk, sometimes with awe, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot to be fairly amazed about here. And of course, we've come to possibly one of the more unusual interpolations on this street, because the Bagelry, I mean, bagels I associate with New York, probably.
Bagels, yeah.
But it's a very successful restaurant cafe. And I've eaten in it, have you?
I certainly have, yes.
Yeah, we've found it a happy homestead. I think it's a very happy homestead for the LGBTQ community generally. And when we get here, because we're quite used to the idea of coming and seeing, is there anybody in today that I know, and looking through the window, only the window's kind of different today. It's got a very
quite
great,
exciting, yeah.
Yeah, it's got a lot of inscription on it. Shall I use that word?
Inscription, yeah, I like that. Yeah.
There's a lot of words, there's a lot of diagrammatic lines and things around it. And I think for people who maybe won't take this crawl, but just take it from us, we should probably just try and evoke what's there. Maybe you start off, what stands out for you from this?
I think for me what strikes me the most is it kind of has the immediate colours and the lines that are striking out. Very sensitive. It feels very sensitive to me. It kind of reminds me of the Women's Hospital a little bit, actually.
Yeah.
It's got the blues, it feels quite calming, and then it's got this figure in the corner, which immediately I see, the little huddled figure.
Yeah, made out of lines.
Made out of lines as well, yeah, the purples and the greens, and then just with the small words going around it, and it's a very protective figure. For me it says conform and bury, and I think that is, I sort of immediately see this, and it's this huddled figure with a little thing underneath that says, digging an ever deeper hole, must come up for air, must come out for air. And I think that for me is the first thing that I see in this. And then straight up above that you've got the dove, which sort of got a very hopeful message that reads, the system relies on our complicity, we need more than good intentions, we need actions. Which I see those as kind of in a juxtaposition.
Yeah, and they're on the left side of it.
They're on the left
and
side.
Then there's this big, I don't call it a slogan, but a kind of motif which says both and neither.
Yeah.
With freedom of expression, please. So in a sense, it's a conversation that's having with us if we want to have it.
Yeah.
Sharing thoughts that the window is having, if you want to put it that way.
The window's having the thoughts.
Yeah. This is an artwork by Soph Welton. And I imagine that when Soph was putting it together, the idea was to capture as many different thoughts about LGBTQ life as possible and the situation in the world. I mean, if we go over there, I just see the word accept me.
Yeah. You think you see something every single time you look at a different angle, you just see another part of it, which tells you another little thing. It's just feels very informative, but gently informative.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you could spend 10 minutes with this just getting used to the different kind of thoughts that are there.
I've just realised that it's a person as well. The lines are a person, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, decoding it or getting to the bottom of the the layers of motif is part of the trick of this piece of artwork, isn't it?
The trans colours, the trans flag is in there as well.
Yes, we've got Trans
Yeah.
Lives Matter over there. At the top, I just want to hold hands with you in any street, anywhere, without fear. You could certainly go away with an awful lot of good things to say to people as a result of doing this, wouldn't you?
It's got some good statistics as well. So if you were just looking at something and you wanted to, if you felt like you didn't necessarily have any statistics to hand for any information around queerness, then I think it's a really lovely way of doing it. You can have, right, it says 40% of trans people and 52% of non-binary people adjust the way that they dress for fear of discrimination, but that's very nicely put, and it's a very non-threatening way, so anyone who maybe perhaps isn't, aware of these sort of statistics would be great for them to find this.
I think even
at
just the
Bagelry.
existence of statistics. I mean, so much of what queer people have faced over the recent times has been about people who've got no actual statistics or facts.
Yeah.
They've just got a kind of ill-informed gut feeling.
Yeah.
And so this is a kind of a small encyclopedia of the important things to think about vis-a-vis LGBTQ.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, of course, there's the thing that's slightly odd about it, which is it's transparent.
It's transparent.
So effectively, while we're here now, we can actually look in and see human beings eating, drinking and
Yeah.
consuming as part of the regular daily business of the Bagelry.
Yeah. I like anything that can approach a subject matter with kindness, and this just feels very, very kind to me. It feels very gentle, but at the same time very meaningful and very much, in possession of facts as well, it's just a brilliant way to approach something from my perspective.
Yes.
And if there's bagels involved, then that's great as well.
I agree. I'll tell you what is strange about it, which is that this is all applied to the surface from the inside, so it's a transparency. But, for example, right in the middle of it is the food hygiene rating.
It's the food hygiene rating, which is a strong 4, can we say? It's a very strong 4, yeah.
Exactly. And then at the side you've got opening times and today's special. People are going to come here on the walk because it is part of the idea of the thing that it's followed in a sequence. So you get here, and what would be your feeling or impression in seeing it?
I just get a real sense of friendliness. I think I get a real sense of friendliness, and I want to learn more. It leads you to read different pieces, I think it's something that you would walk past, even if it's just your daily work, walk to work. I feel like this is something you would walk past and have a little read of.
This art crawl gives you more exercise than the other two because we have to walk quite a way through Liverpool from one kind of urban environment to another. We've come from Chinatown, and we're now absolutely in the thick of what we call the Baltic Triangle, which is an area of great growth, great cultural diversity, small businesses, old warehouses, lots and lots and lots of building. And we've come to Baltic Creative, which is both a business centre, but it's also a place where you can eat and relax and reflect on the business of being a cultural operative. And on the front of it is the next of these artworks, and it's called something quite unusual, I think, quite wordy. It is Birds of a Feather Flock Together, aka a new family portrait. Rebecca, what would you say about it as a family? This is 3 people. What are they looking like?
What are they looking at? Well, they're looking straight out at us, with quite a hard-earned look, stare on their face, hard-worn. It seems quite territorial to me. It seems quite staking the claim, claiming their ground. It's a family of what seems to be the mother behind and 2 possibly children in front.
But not young children.
Not young children, no. It seems it could be a family. I mean, I was looking a bit at the artist. It seems very much it could be a family of finding of each other. People who've stumbled upon each other and found each other and claimed this land. But it does feel very American. Feels very frontier-esque, new frontier-esque.
Well, the artist O.y.H is based in New York, I think.
Yeah.
And there's American motifs there. There's stars, and 1 or 2 other motifs that I'm not entirely clear. We'll deal with those in a minute. The issue of family, of course, is a very big one for the LGBTQ community at the moment, because apart from we are family, which means that we all support each other and belong to an empathetic group. I mean, there's also the way in which families come about and the way in which families claim each other. So there's a lot of things to be thought about in relation to it as an issue. But I mean, this one is curious because it, as you say, it stands very central to its own idea of itself. And to me, you know, if I were walking by and we were not like you and I are looking at something that we expected to find, I would think it was just a very confrontational rock band.
What would they be called?
Oh, goodness, well, but they wouldn't be called family, that's for sure. Interesting question, actually. They, I mean, there's a bit of tough stuff about it. I mean, stylistically, it's a swirl with what looks like very strong oil paint.
It is. It's very rugged. It has the ruggedness of I wouldn't necessarily know the brushstroke style, but it's a rough one.
I mean, it's a poster. I mean, it's stuck on the wall, but it is an artwork that exists, I think, elsewhere and in probably in the gallery or something like that, for all I know. The other thing to say about this is just behind us, actually, or over there, is a huge amount of graffiti, and this particular area has before it's been rebuilt, has had quite a lot of quite random graffiti and writing on wall.
Yeah.
So there's nothing particularly queer about finding an image on a wall round here.
Not at all.
It has to be about the content of the thing. And I see, for example, what do you think those birds are along the bottom of the picture?
We thought maybe possibly storks. It could be storks. I saw it as storks. Maybe bringing of children, the bringing of family, the bringing of But it's very stylistic. I wouldn't necessarily be able to be a specific bird come to mind.
No, that's true. I'll tell you where I'm on this one, which is I go to galleries fairly often to see pictures and some established galleries, some like new artworks and so on. And in each of those cases, I spend time in front of a piece, as it were, reading it, trying to find what it means and appreciating it and everything else. And this kind of says, spend some time with me and see if you can unravel some of the things.
Unravel the mystery of it, I think. Yeah, it reminds me of, I think it's called American Gothic.
Yes, it is. Yeah, Grant Wood.
Yeah, because it's got a severity to it. I don't know, there's something about it when you look into their eyes, it feels quite, there's an intensity. Yeah.
Yes, there is. I mean, one thing it projects very strongly is strength, which is whatever kind of family we are, it says.
Strength as a unit, yeah.
We are together and you can't take us apart. You can only examine the way in which we seem to link up with each other. And that's the strength of the thing, I think.
Yeah.
But as I say, in this particular area where there's a lot going on, it's got to be strong.
Yeah, it has.
Just to focus the attention of people.
Away from Jurgen Klopp, yeah, I agree.
Well, exactly so.
Not that he should lose attention, he's a good guy.
No, I mean, this place has changed hugely over the last 4 or 5 years. Does it feel like a real area to you, or does it still...
When you say real area, do you mean...
Well, I mean, in a sense, does it have a coherence as an area, or is it still a miscellaneous collection of bits and pieces that adds up to a district?
Do you know, when I moved back here about 4 years ago, and to me, because I'd never experienced the Baltic, it didn't exist when in its current state when I left, and it's an interesting place. I mean, the gentrification is real.
Yes.
But also, I don't know, it has got a magic to it, and there's like, cause obviously like, there's Kitchen Street, there's different places that you experience different things. You go and caffeinate here, like there is a coherence to it. It may be lost within a few years, but there's been a powerful thing over the last few years, I'd say, in this area. Yeah,
there's something that I'm coming up against quite a lot with regard to these different locations, which is the difference between places that have been made by planners and things that have been evolved by people.
Yeah.
I think this still exists in the kind of evolved by people category, doesn't it?
I think it just does, yeah. I mean, with the pandemic and with everything like that, I mean, there are definitely places that are going to suffer, but I feel like it has an identity.
Yeah, a rich, complex,
yeah.
And just to be clear, one of the things that means is it's a challenge for people who want to queer it, because it's almost queer in its own right.
It is. It grew out. Yeah, it grew to
interrogate itself,
yeah.
And I think that's important. So this here is what you might call the latest addition to a gallery of assertions about what it is to be culturally diverse in the beginning of the 21st century. We don't get more central to the city than the pierhead and the docks, and here we are actually inside rather than outside.
Yep.
It's the atrium part of the development, which contains the Open Eye Gallery, and the Open Eye Gallery is a photography gallery, so we're expecting images left, right and centre, which we've actually found. Round the corner, but in the atrium but not actually in the gallery, are two things sitting side by side, one of which is a digital screen projection, and then beside it is a poster which is the one that is labelled as actually part of our art crawl. The project is called To Be Frank. The artist, photographer, is Michael Parry, who lives in Liverpool and works from Liverpool. And we are able to look at two pieces of work side by side. So let's just concentrate for a moment, Rebecca, on the poster. It's
bold.
It's bold, it's curious, it's strange. It is possibly a transgender. It's somebody dressed in a very unconventional and slightly dishevelled form of drag.
Yep.
And the context of it, the picture, where are they, do you reckon?
I mean, to my eyes, it's a bathroom, and it's in a destructed demolition site. There's no sink. There's just a mirror, and Francis Diamante, who's the person in the picture, is applying lipstick to the camera, but there is a mirror by them, which I quite like.
Yes,
yeah.
And also holding stiletto.
The heels. The heels are the main, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the dress is pretty much kind of dance club a go-go.
It is. It's almost as though the club's crumbled around the Francis and they're unaware that the party's stopped, in a way.
Yes,
yeah.
Well, exactly. And in a sense, the party will not stop.
Well, it won't, yeah.
Because as long as you've got some lipstick and a heel, then you could do it. So in that sense, it's a city, of course, that has been heavily demolished over the years. So we're looking at, as it were, as you say, the spirit of camp, if you want to put it that way, preserving itself in the middle of...
classic rising from the ashes, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Though we've no idea what might be there in the future.
Yeah.
In a sense, all we know is that something has gone almost completely. The sink has been demolished, taken away. The mirror is still there, and therefore the narcissistic sense of self is still there.
Yeah.
Of itself, that doesn't, I think, add up to a particularly positive view of the LGBTQ community. I mean, I'm not saying it's freaky, but it allows for people to dismiss that.
Dismiss it and say, and see it as other and not something they could relate to. But I dare anybody who's from Liverpool who goes on nights out in Liverpool not to be able to relate to that picture.
Well, I agree. And I'm aware that in this particular place, down by the docks, there's a lot of people who don't go for nights out in Liverpool.
To be fair, you might not stumble across them here, but yeah.
But if we then turn our attention left to the projections, and then we've got more images of the To Be Frank project, which is what this is. What I understand now and recognise is that Francis Diamante, is a long-standing member of the Liverpool community, LGBTQ community, who has made an important thing of his street presence.
Right.
And the kind of look we see in the poster is the kind of look you would actually find Frank on a bus, going downtown, often carrying a ghetto blaster with him.
Great.
And he's also, I think at one point, been a member of one of the big local groups and sung with them. So there's a sense in which Frank himself, the Frank that's being celebrated by Michael Parry, is actually a living artwork.
Is the work of art, the walking artwork, yeah.
That of itself makes me feel better about the image,
right.
Because if there's something slightly degraded about that, we know that the life of Frank carries on.
Yeah.
And these are interesting images, aren't they? The ones.
Well, the ones that are flashing up on the screen, I think we saw before was the holding the records, and it's just disruptive. It's just beautiful, disruptive, queer bravery around the city. It feels like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's say that this is documentation.
Yeah.
Rather than an artwork in its own right, like the ones we've looked at in the other part of the walk, we're actually saying this is documentation of a life, a very unconventional, very flamboyant life, which emblematizes a lot of things that the city is about.
Yeah.
Itself being queer, and therefore what we're in a sense is it's what should I say, reports from the frontier of queer. And in terms of this moving image thing here, which is kind of rather crucial to the artwork, I think. I don't think you can see one without the other. Does it work for you that that this artwork is just an artwork in a sense? I mean, in other words, it's not unexpected. It's not specially created. It's what should we put it?
More of a testimony to somebody rather than
Yes, yeah. I mean, here we are describing it, but would we, to put no finer point on it, would we dismiss it simply because it's yet another piece of art in the art quarter?
It's more about being intrigued to discover who this person is, isn't it? I think that's the point of the art, is that you want to discover who that is and why.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a life to be encountered. And some of us who have encountered it over the years find it a celebration. For others, it's a provocation. So, Rebecca, we've seen one or two things this morning that have gone under the heading of queering the city. Have they worked for you? Yeah,
they have worked for me. I think, actually, the first experience at the Bagelry, maybe because I'm more local to that area, and it had a kindness, it had a strength in information, and that to me, the Bagelry itself is a cheery place. You go for a bagel. So I feel like that had a real sense of what queer the city can do in a powerful and subtle way, you know. And then coming round to this sort of thing, you're in the Baltic, you expect to see artwork, and it's a strong piece. It's forthright, and it feels like it's quite challenging in its stare. And this is a ball, you know what I mean? This is part of, you know. Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to see Francis Diamante out on the street. That's what I would want to see. I want to be able to come around the corner and see them at the docks as well. But that, as an image, is very Liverpool, I think.
Queer the City is presented by Roger Hill. Audio production is by Laura Brown. Series production is by Alex Ferguson for Homotopia. Queer the City is made with support from BBC Radio Merseyside. Visit homotopia.net for more info.